Dinosaur Adventureland in Lenox, Alabama. Slightly warm today, wasn't it? I gave 4 tours plus a 2-hour debate. I'm about beat, brother. Anyway, it is July the 12th, 2024. Tonight we're going to be talking about lies in the museum. We've been covering every Friday night lies in the textbooks. Tonight, lies in the museum with Brian Lauer up in Minnesota. So we're here at Genesis Baptist Church in Lenox, old-fashioned, independent, temperamental, fundamental, right-wing, radical, chicken-eating Baptist Church. And today, July the 12th, boot camp last week. When's that available on DVD, brother? This coming week, okay? You want to help us to open for free? Join our 777 Club. I like what you're doing here. I hope you keep going, okay? Go to drdino.com. And no super chats on YouTube. Is that still true? Not monetized on YouTube at all. Okay. So make any checks if you want to donate to CSE, Creation Science Evangelism. Let's see. Here we are, Genesis Baptist Church. Come on in, pay us a visit. 70 miles dead north of Pensacola in Lenox, Alabama. A couple ways to get there. None of them are easy. Just Google it, okay? All right. Brian, tell us a little bit about yourself and your ministry, what got you started, and about lies in the museums. Take it away, brother.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, how it got started is I got a package in the mail from my cousin 20 years ago, and I opened it up, and it was a copy of your talk called The Age of the Earth, and we plugged it in, and it's like it connected the dots. You know, we could see that the Bible was true, that the fossils were a sign of the flood, not evolution. And then that evolution was based on lies. And my wife and I, we looked at each other, and it's like, well, we didn't learn that in school. And so we got your 7 DVD series. And that, by the way, it's at our public library, but 2 of them are missing. I think 4 and 5, Lies in the Textbook and Dangers of Evolution. They're missing out of the library. But we watched that, and it was pretty eye-opening. We just have Hovind night. We would make popcorn with our 2 young boys. They were in junior high or grade school, and we just eat popcorn. It's like, I didn't learn this, I didn't learn this, I didn't learn this. And then we started to do creation vacations and get journals, and we've got all of your debates, a lot of your stuff. And then eventually God started to open the door for me to start giving talks. And I've given creation talks. I've got a YouTube channel called Solidify Your Faith. And it's given talks from Florida to Minnesota and Colorado to Pennsylvania. And I like to go wherever God opens the doors. And so with that, let's dive into some of these things that it's cutting edge material. Dr. Carl Werner, let's see if I can. Dr. Carl Werner, he spent 27 years going around to the museums and interviewing the scientists. Oh, and here we go. Here we start. Does that look familiar? Yeah, my son. Yeah, this must have been, oh boy, 20-some years ago. But we do appreciate what you did and the impact that it's had on our family. It's been a tremendous blessing. And this is my YouTube channel. I got college talks and church talks and kid talks, VBS talks, conference talks. And there's one that's specifically a hydroplate talk. It's a pretty interesting topic. But tonight we're going to take a look at evolution, falsified, and frauds. It says Creation Science 104, because this is the 4th in a series that we're doing at our public library. And you can see these talks on my YouTube channel. Creation Science 101 is the basics. That's where you got 2 perspectives of the past. One's based on blind chance, and the other one's based on a creator. And we show which one makes the most sense there. And then CS 102 shows a lot of really good websites that have really good videos that get you up to speed, and it's kind of fun. And then CS 104, this is the one that I suggested for tonight because this information is not even half a year old. Dr. Carl Werner, he dropped a lot of this, there we go. Okay, evolution of frauds and falsified. But let's start with the ringleader himself, Dr. Ernst Haeckel. He was the most widely read scientist in the world, probably. And these pictures that you're going to see, most of these are coming from his book. This is a book that came out in March. He's got 3 volumes that came out in March. And a lot of these videos are going to be taken directly from the PDF. And it's just a great investment. And this Haeckel was translated into every major language in the world. And the so-called lower races of mankind, the native Africans or Australians or Aborigines or Chinese, were much closer to the animals than they were to the cultivated European world. And this is what the scientists were saying back then. This is trust the science, follow the science. I say, no, let's follow God. Let's follow the Bible. And so then this is Ernst Haeckel. He had these drawings. he said, see how they're just going through their evolutionary phases here. It's ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny, a bunch of fancy words. And it just says they're going through their fish stage, their mammal stage, farm fish, amphibian, mammal, reptile, mammal. And they were frauds. And everybody knew it was a fraud. He even admitted to it. And this is a quick video.
If you go back earlier in development, the different classes of vertebrates look even more different.
According to Wells, Haeckel, and many modern textbooks, mislead students not just because of fake drawings, but because they leave out the earliest stages of embryonic development. What students are shown as the first stage of embryonic development is actually the mid-stage.
And very few textbooks show those earliest stages, and yet that's the whole point.
Yeah, that's the whole point. And how they fudged the embryo illustration. This is New Scientist in 2015. They just basically lied. And this is 100-some years after it, and it's still talking about it. It was embarrassing, but true. Some of the most influential drawings in the history of biology are wrong, exaggerated to fit a thesis. And they still appear in reference books such as Graves' Anatomy. And this was in 1997. And this says he was convicted of fraud at the University of Geneva. It's a real mystery. And half a century of exposed fraud remain in many biological textbooks today. This is Haeckel's Frauds and Forgeries. This was published in 1915. So almost 110 years ago. They know that it's a fraud, and it remains in many textbooks today. And I thought I was going to be doing more of lies in the textbook. And so this is copyright 2024. I just looked at this video, or I wanted to see what was in the textbooks now. I did this talk probably 10 years ago, so I wanted to update it and see if they got any of the lies out. And so I went in, and you can get this stuff online. You know, I looked at the junior high stuff. I went in there and they let me look at the books there. But the high school stuff, that's just online. She just gave me a passcode, you know, the username and a passcode. And so now I have access to what my tax money's paying for. And this is a 2024 textbook online, and it's got those Haeckel's drawings. And not only that, it's got the genetic difference between humans and apes is 1.6%. And for over a decade, it's been only like 80%, 85%, and yet it still says 1.6% in 2024. And these are the textbooks that they're using at my hometown. And they also talk about the similar features. You know, they say that we came from the same ancestors, common ancestors. So that stuff's still there. Okay. But by 1874, Haeckel's own scientific peers began to reprimand his false data. In fact, his own university in Germany censored him for his continued academic dishonesty. But the popular media of the day generally sided with Haeckel, since it told them what they wanted to hear. No more answering to God or the Bible. So even way back then, the media was off the rails. And so then he had nothing to do but make an open confession, which he published in the Berliner in December 29th of 1908. Over 100 years ago, he apologized for those frauds, and they're still in the textbook today. Okay, and this is what he said. I begin at once with the contrite confession that a small fraction of my numerous drawings of embryos, perhaps 6 or 8%, after this compromising confession of forgery, I should be obligated to consider myself condemned and annihilated if I had not the consolation of seeing side by side with me in the prisoner's dock hundreds of fellow culprits, among them many of the most trusted observers and most esteemed biologists. So what's he saying? It's like, yeah, I did it, but so does everybody else. And he said, he declared that he has, after all, only done what other embryologists and biologists have done. Such sort of excuse only makes matters worse. If true, we have here the greatest blow ever struck against the reliability of scientific men and against the current method of pushing the evolutionary theory. If true. So how would we know if it was true? Well, we'd have to check the accuracy of the drawings, right? And the exhibits. And we need somebody to go to 15 countries and 5 continents and travel almost 300,000 miles and take 250 million photographs. And we'd like to do it. You got 27 years to do it. Well, and here's the kicker. You got to fund it yourself. We need you up front, 40 grand for 30 years. It's going to be 1.2 million. And you're going to donate your time. If you had to hire it out, it would cost 14 million. And we're lucky. You don't have to do it because Carl Werner did. Him and his wife, they went out and they did that. And they're offering all the videos, 8 videos for $70. And it's digital downloads, and it's a fundraiser for Kent Hovind. Yeah, he'll keep 35 of it, and then you get all those videos. So it's something, we'll talk about that at the end. Okay, but this is Dr. Carl Werner. You know, in 23, he graduated from med school. He was in the top 1 percentile. And he had pizza with a friend, and the friend said, hey, Carl, do you believe in evolution? And he said, yeah. Friend said, well, what about all the problems with the Big Bang and the laws of physics? And Carl said, oh, I didn't realize there were. And they said, what about all the transitional fossils that should have been found but haven't been found? He says, oh, I didn't realize that they hadn't. And then what about, this one hit Carl right between the eyes. How does life begin if proteins don't form naturally? And this is Mr. 1 percentile, man. He passed his boards in the 99th percentile, so he's not stupid. Oh, and by the way, you know what you call a doctor do you know what you call someone who graduates at the bottom of his med school class? You call him doctor. But he's not that guy. He's at the top of his class. And he knows that proteins don't form naturally. He knows chemistry and biology. And then his friend said, but he still believed in evolution. So his friend said, prove it. Prove evolution true. And those questions haunted him. You know, and that's what I do when I'm out on campus. I just ask questions. Because they can deny the questions, but their subconscious is going to dwell on it if it's not answered properly. And so he thought, well, I'll go around. And so he came up with these ways to falsify it. And as you can see more of the details in my talk on CS 104. But basically, he looked at went around to all the colleges or all the museums. And he said, you know, if evolution is false, we should find the modern animals in there with them. And that's what they found. In the dinosaur layer, they found all 3 groups of fish living today, both amphibian groups living today, all 4 major reptile orders living today. Most are all bird orders living today, and all 3 types of mammals living today in the dinosaur layer. And so, and then he found 432 mammal species. And he does the whale evolution. They did take Rhodocetus out of the textbook, so that one's finally out of there. But it was his video that got it taken out. And let's see, do we got time? Yeah, I'll show it to you.
When this video series was being filmed on location at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, the executive producer noticed a discrepancy between museum drawings of Rhodocetus and the fossils. The reconstruction of Rhodocetus had a whale fluke, but there were no fossils of the tail to confirm this. Dr. Phil Gingrich, the scientist responsible for the discovery and reconstruction of Rhodocetus, was questioned how he knew there was a whale fluke on Rhodocetus, since that part of the fossil was missing.
What was the reasoning that the scientists think there was a fluke on Rhodocetus based on the other pieces of anatomy?
Well, I told you we don't have the tail in Rhodocetus, so we don't know for sure whether it had a ball vertebra indicating a fluke or not. So I speculated it might have had a fluke.
Scientist Gingrich also acknowledged that the flippers were drawn on the diagram without these fossils. Now, he does not believe this animal had flippers. Again, his answer was surprising, since the museum diagrams had flippers on Rhodocetus.
Yeah, his flippers had, yeah. And so I think it's this video that Dr. Carl Werner did, and you'll get this. It's one of the videos you can download. It's the first one, episode 1. And this video, I think, is what took Rhodocetus out of the textbooks, because I didn't see it in there. They got the other ones, but not Rhodocetus. And then another way to falsify it, he said, I predicted that if evolution was not true, then animals and plants would not change significantly over time. Accordingly, I predicted I should find fossils of modern animals and plant species in the older fossil layers. See, in science, you don't prove something true, you try to falsify it. So he basically said, if evolution's false, the modern animals will look just like the fossil animals. And guess what? That's what he found. You know, this was from one of his pictures. Gars haven't changed much in the last 100 million years. It's difficult to distinguish those from today's gars, so they look the same. And what he found was the fossils and the modern animals, they look the same, we know it's different is the scientific name for them. That's what's in the red box there. One is for genus and one is for species. And they don't think they're the same genus or species. And that's how they get Latin words for one of those. That's a scientific word. And if I had to have you guess, are those the same genus, the same kind of animal? Are they the same species? Well, actually, yeah, they are. They're Canis familiaris. Anybody know what that is? That'd be a dog's. Yep, you got the Irish Wolfhound, long nose, and you got the Bulldog, short nose. And you can have that much variety within a species. And yet they'll see something that looks identical, and they'll say, no, different genus, different species. And if they look again, I'll give you slide after slide. Identical. No, they're not. Different genus, different species. Because he thought when he saw it once, he thought it was just an aberration, just an anomaly. But no, it's the rule. I don't think he found one modern thing that they called it the same as the fossil thing. So they're identical, different genus, different species. So they'll say that the top one or the bottom one evolved from the top one, but it's the same. It's the same. It's just, and his whole book is like that. So that's what the second video is all about. It's just, and his book is just full of all these. Just think of all the work he did, going to all these museums, getting those pictures, and then going finding what they are. Okay, but now let's dive into human evolution. This is bombshell information just released in March. So let's take a look at Nebraska Man. And he's claimed to have 150 frauds in human evolution. And he doesn't use the word fraud likely, because when you find a tooth, a pig tooth, and call it an ape man tooth, that's not fraud. That's a mistake. But we're going to show you what the fraud is. So let's take a look at this. Okay. Spoiler alert, all 5 men seen on the previous page were created using ordinary non-primate bones. See, all those. There's bones they put together. 40 professional scientists promoted these ape men, which were made of using dolphin, cat, dog, hippo, pig, horse, donkey, raccoon, and bovine family bones. And these scientists had 43 university professorships. So they took all these bones and they put them together and they said it was an ape man. And these guys authored more than 4,500 scientific journals and 128 books. And these are the experts. And they misinterpreted 16,000 ordinary rocks as stone tools. So that's what's happening in science. Okay, so again, let's set the stage. Senator William Jennings Bryan, he ran for president 3 times, or 2 or 3 times, and he lost. But everybody knew who he was. Yeah, he ran 3 times, so everybody knows him. And he writes an article, and this is from his book. I encourage you to get these books; they're just beautiful. He wrote an article for the New York Times, and he called out evolution. He says how it doesn't make sense, and then at the end, he called out the president of the Natural Museum there to respond. And so that's the president there, Dr. Henry Fairfield Osborne, and he's pretty upset. He spent the majority of his career at the prestigious American Museum of Natural History in New York City. And he's irritated that some creationist calls him out. And so, yeah, a little bit about him. Let's see, he said in 1926, he said, blacks are a different species and inferior. The standard of intelligence of the average adult Negro is similar to that of an 11-year-old youth of the species Homo sapien. So he doesn't think that black people are humans, the same species. This is your scientists. Yeah, follow the scientists? I don't think so. But he responds, and it's kind of a milquetoast, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about thing. But now there's a big debate in front of the whole country, creation versus evolution. And what happens? Just magically, a few weeks later, and he forms a dream team. If he was wrong, the negative fallout for the museum and the public's acceptance of evolution would be crippling, because somebody sent him a tooth. And the tooth, they said, was an ape man. This is where they got Nebraska Man. So they got this tooth, and he got his dream team together so that nobody could dispute it. And they were considered unrivaled experience of the scientific studies of mammalian fossilized teeth. So nobody knows more about it than they do. And they say this tooth is a ape man, and they call it Nebraska Man. And these scientists from England, again, these pictures are all from his book, from England, they push back and they say, you just showed us drawings of the tooth. We need some pictures, some x-rays, and they didn't buy the ape man tooth. And so he did some x-rays, and then he reminded his London colleagues of the heated battle raging in the United States over the controversial topic of evolution. Any unfavorable comments from the London scientists regarding this fossil would undermine the theory of evolution and jeopardize his hard-fought public relations battle with William J. Bryan. Okay. And so he says, keep your mouth shut there, guys. You're shooting yourself in the foot when you go after these teeth because it's going to undermine evolution. And we got the whole country looking at this debate. And so that goes this. And then in the Illustrated London News, they drew this picture from one tooth. I mean, you got to be pretty good to know what the guy looks like and his wife and what the tools look like. But there's a lot of imagination there. And it's Nebraska's ape man of the Western world. So now that's in the New York Times. Then they had the Scopes monkey trial. And it wasn't whether evolution could be taught. It was whether human evolution could be taught. And this is what happened. He was confronted with the battery of the dream team there who stunned him with the facts of Nebraska man. The experts scoffed and made a mockery of him. After all, who is he to question the world's greatest scientific authorities? Well, guess what, folks? We need to start questioning the greatest scientific authorities, shall we? Especially after COVID. Yeah, we better start questioning. And I think, Dr. Hovind, wherever I speak, everybody knows, somebody knows you, somebody's heard of you. And I think there was a small army of people that were leery of the government. Because when you, in that Age of the Earth thing, you had talked about the Georgia Guidestones, where it says maintain humanity under 500 million. And you said back 20 years ago, he said, if they try to do it, it'll probably be a vaccine. And so I think that had everybody's antenna up. So there was enough of us who resisted. And I think some of our freedom could indirectly be attributed to you. I think you might have played a key piece in that because I think you woke up a lot of people. Okay. Back at it. Years after the Scopes trial, the tooth upon which Nebraska man was constructed belonged to an extinct species of pig. There's your Nebraska man. It was a pig. Yeah, and look at that jaw. Okay, they lied about, okay, now this is where the fraud comes in. They lied about when the tooth was found because they said they found it last year when it was actually 5 years ago. They said it was an ape man tooth, but they found that pig jaw, the jaw of the pig 8 years before that, and they didn't show the public that pig jaw. And then they said it was a pig tooth after the scope. Then after the Scopes monkey trial, after the whole world saw that, they said, "Oh, our bad." And then the people who did that, they made all those mistakes. Did they get fired? No, they got promoted. Yeah, because he falsely claimed that Cook found the tooth in 1921 when he actually found it 4 or 5 years earlier. Found it in 1917. And so, yeah, it was 5 years ago instead of 1 year ago. And that's the timeline that we just kind of talked about. And then Dr. Osborne was elected president of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, the highest honor that the U.S. and Canadian scientists can give a colleague, and appeared on the cover of Time magazine, even when he was wrong all those times. I'm thinking, man, that's the career to get into. You don't have to be right at all. Okay, now let's go to the tongue child in South Africa. This is Dr. Raymond Dart, and he was mentored by Elliott Smith, who had his hand in the Piltdown hoax. And he also had his hand in the Nebraska man and also Neanderthal. You know, he had a lot of those frauds. He pushed a lot of those on the public, and he's the guy who mentors Dart. And so Dart finds this skull, and it looks like a chimp. And he says, no, it's Homo habilis. And these people call him out on it. He gets criticized, and he gets promoted after being rebuked by colleagues. Yeah, just they appointed him. They liked the prestige. They liked the attention the college was getting. And I suppose somebody gave them some money and said, don't fire him, promote him because he's making big dents against the Bible. But and he was kind of embarrassed. And then he came back 10 years later. He didn't like the heat. And then he put together, this is what we started out with. We put together this ape man out of all these different bones: canid, baboon, monkey, bovid, horse, feline. Yeah, all that stuff. And then he says, yeah, it's an ape man. And they say ape man everywhere. And they said, those are tools. Look at that. They're tools, and they're actually just bones. But and then what was it? 1,400? Oh, 14,812 collected tools were just ordinary rocks. So what a waste of tax money that was. Finding 14,000 stones and categorizing them, and oh, what a mess. And then Dart, he said, his friend, on his deathbed, he told his friend, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. And that's what we're seeing, folks. We're seeing the story. We're not seeing the truth. Okay, let's go to Orsi Man in Spain. And now we're going to talk about some of it's supposed to be the oldest ape man ever discovered in Europe and in Asia, in a small town of Orsi, Spain. And there it is. It's a big tourist trap. You know, it's their claim to fame. Now we get into the economics of this issue. Okay, and it was they found the store. They found it, and it was and like over 300 newspapers and a whole bunch of radio interviews, and it was just spread all over the place. So it's putting them on the map. A lot of money is coming into the town because of this. And then a year later, it's exposed that it had a crest in the middle of it. So they didn't clean it off at the beginning. They just looked at one side and said, hey, it's an ape man. And then they cleaned off the concrete stuff side on the other side. And it was from a donkey, or they called it an ass. It was from a donkey. And so you see where that is. You know, that's not in a human. A human doesn't have that wave in his skull, but a donkey does. And this one person, but why? There was 500 guests were coming to Orsi to then attend the International Science Conference. So they don't want to tell people it's a donkey skull. You know, and Gilbert had been promoted because of his notoriety, and they called in Orsi the Mecca of paleontology. Everybody's coming there, and their budget increased, and they were famous. He was going to write a book and get royalties, and it all falls apart if it's a donkey skull. So they have a lot of financial incentive not to let it be the donkey. And so then person finally said, you know, I'm going to go public with it myself then if you're not going to. And then the media had a heyday. You know, headlines such as "Ass is taken for a man. Scientists make ass out of an old skull." And the conference was quickly and quietly canceled. Yeah, they had a lot of egg on their face. And the problem, let's see, this is Tim White. He told New Scientist, the problem with a lot of anthropologists is that they want so much to find hominid ape men that any scrap of bone becomes a hominid bone. Even a dolphin bone becomes a hominid bone. Because you get money for finding ape men, not dolphins, certainly not donkeys. Okay, and so there's a lot of, and this Jose Gilbert also sought and obtained endorsements from the Orsi man from prominent evolutionist scientists. So he said, yeah, it was a donkey, but then he starts to get all these other endorsements. When a discovery is made, popularism and supposed exaggeration are crucial in order to construct a whole machinery and narrative around the discovery to ensure popular support and funding. Follow the money, folks. And so it was falsified. It was a donkey, and yet it still shows up. These are from 1989 to 2016. It's still showing up in different journals and books. And so it's the Orsi man is currently housed in its own separate museum, even though it's a donkey. And this guy says, a former curator of the museum, he says, most of the people don't believe that it's human, especially the paleontologists. So it's basically a joke. Let's move into volume 4. This is Lucy. Yeah, this is a lie, a remarkably complete skeleton, a nearly complete skeleton, and that's not nearly complete. And from those bones, they make Lucy, give her human hands, human feet, whites behind the eyes. They don't have anything there for it. And this is from Werner's book. The finger and toe bones of Lucy were curved, similar to a chimpanzee. And Carl Kirby says that they're more curved than a chimp. And yet they put human feet on them. Isn't that interesting? Okay. Dr. Johansson knowingly made false statement about the knee. He knowingly, because when Dr. Werner went to talk to the co-discoverer of this, he found out that was Dr. Coppens. He said the knee joint is more like an ape. And Dr. Werner almost fell out of his chair because he never heard that before. And then they also changed the hip in the middle. This on the left is what they found. On the middle is what they is the chimp, and on the right is a human. And so they cut it and they twist it to make it a human.
The perfect fit was an illusion that made Lucy's hip bones seem to flare out like a chimp's. But all was not lost. Lovejoy decided he could restore the pelvis to its natural shape. He didn't want to tamper with the original, so he made a copy in plaster. He cut the damaged pieces out and put them back together the way they were before Lucy died. It was a tricky job, but after taking the kink out of the pelvis, it all fit together perfectly, like a three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. As a result, the angle of the hip looks nothing like a chimp's, but a lot like ours.
Well, I hope so. If you cut it apart and put it back together the way you want it, it better look like the way you want. And I was at St. Cloud State, and I had a kiosk, and the anthropology department was right beside us. And then we're talking, and I said, they cut Lucy's hip and made a chimp hip look like a human hip. She said, no, they did not. And I said, sure they did. I got it on my computer. Do you want to see it? And she said, no, I don't want to see it. You know, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. That's what's happening. And then they say it made these most definitely walked upright. And this textbook is from about 10 years ago. This is from a St. Cloud State textbook, and I show it to them. But now this is from Dr. Werner. He said that these Laetoli footprints were so human-like, it appeared as if two people had just walked down a beach, leaving their footprints in the sand. The trackway became part of Dr. Johansson's strongest piece of evidence for Lucy walking upright on 2 feet, 1,000 miles away. That's right. It's 1,000 miles away where they found these footprints, and they say Lucy made them. It's just imagination beyond imagination. And so you had the human footprint, the Laetoli footprint, and a chimp footprint. You know, that was a human that made that footprint. And the only hominid present in Laetoli's deposit was Afarensis, that was Lucy. And by inference, the footprints must have been made by members of Lucy's species, is what the world thought. But then it's false, because they found a human skull there. You know, and then when Dr. Werner, thank God for this, he's out there, you know, interviewing the scientists, taking pictures of the fossils, and there's Laetoli 1, Laetoli 2, and all these bones, and it gets out to like Laetoli 18, and it's a human skull. And Dr. Werner almost fell off his chair again. They had said there was only, you know, Lucy stuff here, no human stuff. And so the skull above, Mary Leakey discovered it. And he had the opportunity to correct himself in the 97 television documentary, and also when he sat down with Dr. Werner, but he didn't. Isn't that interesting? And then one of the hallmarks of science is repeatability. Scientists should be able to repeat the experiment, observe or test, and obtain similar results. Dating rocks and fossils with radiometric tests falls short of this necessary criteria to be considered scientific. I agree. And she dated a modern duck, and it tested out at 2,000 years. So radiometric dating doesn't work. And this is KBS, KBS Tuft skull of 1470, I believe. Look at how many times they dated that layer. Why would they do something like that? Because they had it all figured out, and you can read about this in creation.com. The pigs took it all. Skull 1470, it was originally dated to be 2.9 million years old. In the layers of rock. Pretty much everybody agreed that the layer of rock was around 200 million years old. But then they found that skull, and they can't have that skull underneath that layer. So then they had to do a whole bunch of mental gymnastics, and the mammal fossils beneath KBS Tuff had determined that the rocks should be between 2 and 5 million years old, you know, after they found the mammalian ones. Then they found the skull, and it should be dated 2.61. And in the 10-year controversy over the dating of one of the most important human fossils ever discovered, the pigs won. Because they were trying to see, well, we know when the pigs won or the elephants, so we'll just use their date of extinction for this skull 1470. The pigs won over the elephants. The pigs won over the past potassium-argon dating. The pigs won over argon-argon dating. The pigs won over the fission tracking dating. The pigs won over the paleomagnetism. The pigs took it all. But in reality, it wasn't the pigs that won. It was evolution that won. In the dating game, evolution always wins. Yeah, so they just don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. Okay, now this is what they have Lucy showing up in 2011. But that college textbook that I showed you, it didn't have that. Okay. All right, now Philip Tobias. Yeah, he's the successor for Raymond Dart. And he's the guy who found the Homo habilis. And I'll let this guy. It's kind of neat when you see one evolutionist throw another one under the bus. And this is in episode 6. So if you order these videos, this is one of them.
Philip Tobias summoned me to his office, and he said, I want you to make a new reconstruction of STW53. And I said, oh, why? And he said, well, I'm not happy with the brain size. It's too small. And I said, but that's the way it is. It can't be made any bigger. The anatomy shows that was the size of the brain case. He wanted it to be a Homo habilis. In fact, he kept publishing this as a Homo habilis. He then asked a research fellow that he just appointed there, Darren Kernow, he asked him to make a new reconstruction. And what Kernow did was he separated out this near contact here. He separated it out by 8 millimeters and made this wider. He flexed the parietal occipital contact here. He flexed it upward to make it bigger. He took apart other pieces as well and expanded it. And he moved this frontal bone forward to make it very elongated. It's totally false because there was no justification for what they did. It was simply Philip Tobias's ambition to make this into a Homo habilis.
Homo habilis. Yeah, and you get this video. That's one of the videos that you get. And there's the pictures before and after. You know, Dr. Clark, he put it together the way it said, but the other guy didn't want that. So you don't get money for finding a chimp. You got to find an ape man, and they'll alter the bones to make it look like an ape man. And how does this happen? Well, you know, they deny access to the fossils. Carl Werner said he only was able to get access to about 10% of the fossils that he asked to see. And these are the outdated, you know, the ape men, you know, that he got to see, you know, after they've been falsified. But he couldn't get his hands on the ones that are currently in the textbook. So you got a good old boy club. You only get to see only people who are going to support it are going to have access to them. And reviewers, actually, they want evolution to be true also. Okay. And he said, unless full access is available, the fossil is not verifiable, not scientific. Enough of these drawings or these putting back together stuff. And then, in fact, during the first 100 years of the theory of human evolution, the 3 most accepted, most promoted, and most talked about ape-man fossils, the Java man, the Neanderthal man, and the Piltdown man, were kept off limits to most scientists. That's what's happening. Trust us. We know what we're talking about. And they denied access to the original Java man. And they denied, Dr. Osborne denied it in the past too. So not just anybody can get these fossils. And they're not allowed to film more recently discovered and currently accepted ape-man fossils. And here's the simple solution. You want refuse to publish any article about any fossil unless the author first places high-quality color photographs of the original fossil in the public domain. That's right. You can't publish unless we can see what you got. You know, anybody can see what you got. Then make the fossils available for inspection by anyone. You know, and there was people that were charging his video team an extraordinary amount of money to have access to the fossils, and they agreed to pay it, and then they still won't give them access to the fossils. And then also the dig site field notes are placed in public domain, so that we know there was a human skull by the Laetoli footprints. So we won't have to wait decades to figure that out. And then the people who don't do this, then they're banned from any further publication. That's how you get trust back in science, because nobody trusts the science anymore. I mean, maybe somebody does, but my goodness, you got to see both sides if you want to think. And they're not giving us both sides, especially in government schools. You're getting a blind perspective of the past, or, you know, a perspective of blind chance, and you aren't getting the perspective of a creator. Okay. And then Haeckel's confession, you know, if it be true, is everybody doing it like he says? Apparently it is true. Dr. Carl Werner, he's documented it. He claims to have 150 frauds in human evolution. And I encourage you to go listen to him. And evolution has always had such an appeal. No answering to God and his rules anymore. None of this inconvenient thou shalt nots. And one can pretend that he or she is standing with science while doing so. And I think there's a whole lot of that going on. I think they've got doublethink, like in 1984. Oh, and speaking of scientific fraud, this is Dr. Jerry Bergman, and he has 9 degrees, and he was an outspoken atheist, and now he's a Christian professor, and man, can he tell some stories. And you can see this on the TCCSA YouTube channel.
The problem of fraud in society, it's a, quote, a serious, deeply rooted problem that affects no small number of contemporary scientific research studies, especially in the field of evolution. And I should add, especially in the field of medicine. Of all places where forgery should not be is in medicine. Why? I don't know if any of you have worked for medical school, but I have. And a lot of professors there, they don't get paid by the medical school. They get grants. And their salary comes from the grant. Well, if you don't get good results, your grant's not renewed. And so it's a matter of, can you feed your family? Or, hey, I will just tweak the results a little bit. So there's a strong incentive today for forgery in science. And so therefore there's an epidemic of forgery in science, and in medicine especially.
Yes, that was just a short. You can see the rest of it on YouTube, TCCSA. It's highly recommended. And there it is. Oh, man, he's just excellent. And we'll skip that one. But who trusts the experts? I don't. But this is what they did. 15 countries, 5 continents, all that stuff. And you can have, it's a 27 years for him and his wife to do it. Debbie and Carl. What a great couple. What a great gift to the truth. And there's the books. They've got homeschool curriculums also. They got those videos, and it's just incredible, high quality. Bob Enyart, he usually marks up a book, dog ears, everything. He said he couldn't bring himself to write in these books. They're just so beautiful, and they really are. And so you can go into his website, thegrandexperiment.com, and that's where you can see a lot of those. But I encourage you to make a donation to Kent. And Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. And that's kind of why I do this. So I want to point people to the God of the Bible. Instead of blind chance history, there's a God history, a designer, and that creator revealed himself in a book. And this is a key verse. But there's evolution falsified and frauds. You can hear him getting interviewed on rsr.org. Let's see. I think, yeah. Okay. All right. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and then we can have some Q&A, if that's...
Amen. All right, now, Brian, you're saying that the books and videos, the videos that he has done are available, and he wants to help our ministry. So people donate $70. We give him $35, and they get access to all the books. Is that what you're saying?
Not the books. They get access to the videos.
To the videos, okay.
There's 8 videos that they'll have access to.
So is there something on our website, Joseph, that they can click and do that? He just learned about it. So you work with Joseph to get that on our website.
Yep. So basically, right. Yeah. They'll
give
you.
This is awesome. Thank you so much. You're going to come down here in the wintertime when it's freezing up there in Minnesota?
Boy, it's tempting. It's real tempting, especially if a church or school wants me to come down. I really, really want to share these messages. And they've called me the Johnny Appleseed of creation. And wherever I go, I like to plant seeds.
I was raised in Illinois. You guys get lots of snow up there. We get rain down here, but we don't have to shovel it. We just kind of let it run off by itself,
Well,
we love it. Thank you so much for helping me, brother. I am dead, but I'm beat today. Been a long day.
I got one more thing, if I can share it.
Go quick before I fall over.
Let's see here. Let's see if I can get this. We got 15 minutes yet. I think this will be worthwhile. I finally read the book 1984. And so, this is The Elephant in the Living Room. George Kaler was interviewing a microbiologist or a molecular biologist, and this is their published conversation. He says, do you believe in the information evolved? He said, nobody I know in my profession truly believes it evolved. It was engineered by genius beyond genius, talking about the information in the DNA. And such information could not have been written any other way. The paper and ink did not write the book. Knowing what we know, it's ridiculous to think otherwise. A bit like Neil Armstrong believing the moon is made of green cheese. He's been there. And the guy, George asks, have you said this publicly in paper or lecture? And he says, no, it all just evolved. He said, what? You just told me. And he said, to be a molecular biologist requires one to hold two insanities at all times. One, it would be insane to believe in evolution when you can see the truth for yourself. Two, it would be insane to say you don't believe in evolution because you're going to lose your job, basically.
Amen.
And so it made me think of doublethink. I finally read 1984. I've been hearing about it my whole life. And it is in the bottom paragraph, to know and not to know, to be conscious of complete truthfulness while telling carefully constructed lies. That's what he just did in that previously. To hold simultaneously two opinions which canceled out, knowing them to be contradictory and believing in both of them. Okay, and why would they want to do this? Well, that top paragraph there. Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. So who controls the past controls the future. That's why there's such a battle between creation and evolution. Do we have a past that's just blind chance and no God? Or do we have a past that has a creator and a God? Because whoever wins, that's going to determine the future. You know, if you can get rid of God in the science class, hey, now the government's in charge and they can make the future be whatever they want. And then who controls the present controls the past. That's why there was so much censorship during COVID. They were trying to create a narrative, and if you had something that went against it, they got rid of it. They censored it. And then it goes on to say, the party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. And that's what they're doing. Don't believe your eyes. 2 + 2 is 5 because we say so. You know, that man in a dress is not a man, he's a woman. You know, there's a lot of this doublethink and doublespeak going on, and we need to realize that. And we need to get, and this is what motivates me. You know, we've got a belief system. Widespread belief systems seldom change when frequently reinforced by influential institutions such as universities, media, religious institutions, even creation organizations, and the scientific and intellectual elite. But when a vast number of people realize they've been misled, an intellectual revolution begins. And so we need scientists and laymen willing to re-examine the old explanations and then inform others, then also withstand the scorn of and misrepresentation from those whose income, prestige, and are tied to the old paradigm. And so just follow the money. And we showed you that. All right, so we're done. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So thank you for letting me share that, Dr. Hovind.
Well, thank you, Brian. Tell folks how to get a hold of you and how to get your material and your website and all that stuff.
I got a YouTube channel called Solidify Your Faith, and I've got a website that's called solidifyyourfaith.weebly.com. And that's WEEBLY.com. My brother asked me, what does that mean? And I said, it means I'm cheap. It's a free site. And so that's pretty much it. I've got Creation Science 101. There's college talks, and we just want to get this information out there. Because basically you got to see both sides if you want to think. And in our society, in our schools, we're not getting both sides. We're getting indoctrinated instead of educated.
I've been saying that for 35 years, brother. There's a war going on.
Amen. Oh, and if they want to email me, it's solidifyyourfaith@hotmail.com.
Okay. Yeah, I've been telling folks there's a war going on. Find something to do. If you're not going to shoot, carry bullets, take care of the wounded, do something. Everybody's more worried about chasing Zelda or some stupid video game than they are about winning this war for our kids' souls and minds. Amen. All right, my throat's about gone too, brother. Thank you so much for joining us. Come down, visit anytime, all right?
Amen.
Thank you. And if you folks want to get a hold of our ministry, drdino.com, call 855-BIG-DINO. If you know any radio programs in your area or shows you'd like to have me on, I do quite a few of those every week. Call 855-BIG-DINO, extension 4. And we'll get on your local radio show or your TV show and stir up some trouble for your community. I love doing that by remote because you're up there and got to handle it. I'm down here. You can go to sleep. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow. Bye.